Welcome to Inflection Point Podcast, where we cultivate change from the inside out as we ponder the Cairo question. Will Cairo have to protest in his lifetime for the birthright to freely and peacefully exist in the skin in which he was born? We stand on the belief that dismantling racism goes beyond laws and legislation or politics and economics. Here, anti-racism activation is presented as an inside job where personal transformation and accountability impact social change. So take a seat at the anti-racism activation table with Inflection Point Podcast.
Well, hello to our audience, and thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Inflection Point Podcast, where we are dedicated to anti-racism activation and the art of listening and authentic conversation and engagement and action and accountability and all that good stuff. I am your host, Anita Russell, and here's a quick hello from co-hosts Mavis Bauman and Gail Hunter.
Hi, everybody. As Anita said, thanks for tuning in.
Hi, I'm Gail Hunter, and thanks for coming.
So if you have been following us, you know that our theme for 2025 has been community engagement and the grassroots of change. So throughout the year, we have explored stories and strategies and successes of various community-driven movements that are making a difference. Our episodes have kind of focused on both theory and practice, allowing our audience to gain insights that they can apply in real-world communication, community engagement efforts. And in this episode, we are focusing on the recent No Kings protest and the question that many have been pondering: why didn't the Black people show up? So it's really interesting for me when I think about, first of all, let me just say that I actually did attend the No Kings protest here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So it was my husband and I had gone. So I'm going to take a little bit of time out to explain why I chose to be there, right? And it kind of goes back to my mother. I am definitely a manifestation of my mother as my ancestor, right? And so she was an activist. And when I was growing up, I watched her as she prepared on more than one occasion to go out and protest, right? And particularly for human rights, civil rights, welfare rights. And so that's kind of what I grew up watching my mom do. And so later on in life, probably I want to say maybe in my college years or so, she got a job as the foreign student advisor at Carnegie Mellon University, right? So she worked there for about 10 years or so. Then she passed away in 2017. And as I was looking through some of her papers and her letters and pictures and all that sort of thing, I stumbled upon a lot of items that came from students as well as parents whom she served when she was the foreign student advisor. And a lot of them, particularly the ones that came from parents, because they were really praising my mother for the work that she had done to support their son or their daughter while they were at the university. They sent her gifts. She had so many gifts, like pieces of jewelry, pieces of art, and things of that nature. And so I also saw her in a couple of instances where she was speaking at a conference, right, and talking about foreign student advisor stuff and that sort of thing. But what's remarkable about my mother's journey at at Carnegie Mellon University is the fact that behind the scenes, she was experiencing full-blown workplace racism. So for most of the time that she was there, she was struggling with that. But what I can honestly say is that all of that struggle behind the scenes, it never broke her. And it never stopped her from staying on point with what she was there for And that was to help all students at the university who were under her purview as the foreign student advisor, no matter where they came from, no matter what their race, country of origin, gender, or whatever. My mother put the same energy into taking care of those students. And so, having said that, I remember having a conversation with her, and we were talking about when you make a decision of what it is you're going to stand for, right? And she told me that there comes a time in everybody's life, no matter who you are, when you have to make a decision, or you may be faced with making a decision about something that you're either going to stand for or you're not going to stand for. And that kind of stuck with me for most of my life. And so with the No Kings protests, because of that kind of background, I was compelled, if you will, to participate. But I can honestly say I wasn't necessarily participating because I was a Black person. I was participating because what that was about really resonated with me, just in terms of who I am as a human being. And I just felt like it was the right thing for me to do. But I want to kind of explore this question of why the Black people were not present, and we'll share some of our ideas in terms of how that question really, really resonates. And it's kind of like a question that I've heard before. Why didn't this person show up for that? Or why didn't that group of people show up for that? And a lot of times it's wrapped up in confusion, or sometimes disappointment, or maybe even rejection, right? And so if you're listening to this, I want you to really think about that day and the aftermath of that day. And how does that question resonate with you? Where were the Black people? Because it's pretty evident when you look at the videos from various cities that there really wasn't a strong presence of Black people there. So the question is, where were they? But even more important than where were they was why they didn't show up. And so that's what we're going to kind of ponder in this segment. Why they didn't show up. Like, I know why they didn't show up when I think about myself and some of the things that I've been involved in within my life and being involved in my community. I've always been very community oriented and that sort of thing. So, Mavis and Gail, I want to hear from you. When you hear that question, first of all, talk to me about whether or not you experienced the No Kings protest yourself. And then I want to really dig into this idea that the Black presence was very absent in that protest.
Want me to go first, Gail?
Sure.
Or
unless you want me to, it's okay.
Oh, it's okay. I just thought since Gail is in Pittsburgh, it might be quite a different answer. But anyway, I did go to the protest. I thought it was fabulous, but I live in a very white area. And I did remember seeing one Black person, but what's perplexed me since is that even in the news reports that I watched, I didn't think, where are the Black people? I didn't notice. And I don't know what that is about. Because, when you were on the ground, Anita, you could see. And when you look at mass groups of people, I couldn't really see, and I didn't look for that. But it does make me question why it didn't come up in my social media. In other words, there are reasons we don't know much about each other. We're not. I follow a lot of Black folks on various social media, but this never came up to me. And so I'm thinking, as much as I'm trying to know and understand, it didn't even occur to me. So I don't know how other white folks felt in the larger cities where there's a greater population, but it just underscores for me that there's so much I have to learn yet. And once you pose the question, Anita, why, where were they? I just immediately thought that it wouldn't be safe for them, that they finally wanted to keep themselves safe, because whenever I hear about a protest, they're blaming Black folks if there's violence. That's what Black folks do. They break into stores, they loot, da 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 da. So that was my first thought, but none of that is firsthand experience. So that's my bit for the moment.
Yeah, I did not go, and I would have loved to have gone, but I had my grandson has Williams syndrome. They had a Williams syndrome walk that morning, and OMA, the nonprofit that I run, also had a retreat all weekend. So I was a little, unable to actually physically get there, and would have loved to have. And it's interesting you said about the violence, because my daughter, when I said I was going to go originally, and she said, "You're not going. It could be dangerous," and on and on. And that was never something in my mind, having protested so much in the 60s and 70s, and just never. I knew could be dangerous, but until Kent State happened, that around the war issue, I didn't think it would be dangerous. But that's not, obviously, that's not why I went. And I didn't really think about why there were Black people there until I started seeing some pictures, and I recognized that there really weren't. Mm-hmm. It was interesting, because at first I was a little surprised, and then I started thinking about it, and I thought, why would they, right? Mm-hmm. How many times have they marched? How many times have they wanted to be seen and heard, and needed to be, and had a right to be, and how many white people were by their side? And many of the marches and so forth there were, but not as many as needed to be, right? To make a stand, to make a point. Yeah. And so I kind of got it. I kind of understood that if I was Black, I don't know if I'd want to go either. And it's because the whole thing about no kings, it's really for everybody. And yet, where all the issues before that people have tried to march for and protest about, was also for everybody. It's for everybody that everyone has the ability to live in a safe, equitable experience in this lifetime. And it wasn't just for Black people, it was for everyone. And so, what can I say?
It's interesting to learn about why, right?
Right.
It's interesting to learn, because it's a voice I've not heard before on a subject like this.
And I think it's important for white people to hear this, and to really start to think about, put yourself in their perspective, in their place, and how would you feel? Of course you'd feel the same way. I'd feel the same way, right?
But here's the issue.
Yeah.
Here's the issue. When I think about, so I already explained why I made the choice that I was going to go. And I absolutely noticed that there were no Black people there. There were probably, in the place where we were, there was probably about, I'd say no more than 10, at the most 5 to 10. But I think people missed the point of us not being there.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I missed it.
And so I read a couple of articles about this whole idea why the Black people weren't there. I had read one article where the sort of the flavor of the article was not really why they weren't there, but the fact that people should pay attention to the fact that they weren't there, right? And ask a different kind of question, or just kind of looking at it through this lens of what was that march really about? And if you look at it through a political lens, the fact that the Black people weren't there, some people would interpret that to say, oh, well, the Democrats really need to get themselves together because it looks like maybe they're losing the support of of Black people and all that sort of thing. But the ones, and all of that for me is just kind of speculation. It's just, you know, unless you're willing to sit down and have a conversation with a group of Black people, you're just guessing. You're literally just guessing, right?
Exactly.
So the one article that really, really ticked me off, though, was an article by the name of Bill Maher, right? And the title of the article was, and this was, I think it was on Yahoo that I saw this article, Why More Black People Did Not Show Up to the Very White No Kings protest. The first thing that I have an issue with is the fact that he didn't pose that necessarily as a question, it was a statement. And so he, you know, in that article kind of explains why the Black people didn't show up. And the claim was that the Black people may have been less interested in taking part in the protests out of fear of being identified. But that makes no sense to me. And the reason I say that makes no sense to me is that if you look at protesting within, like, if you look at it within like a moment, this is what it means to me. If you're looking at it within a moment, like that was a moment of time when there was a protest. It was a moment of time. But if you look at it through a historical spectrum, you see something very different. So when I think about Black people showing up in protests, we've been protesting in America since we've been here.
Right.
That's the honest to God truth. We have been protesting in America since we've been here. So when I hear somebody make that statement that we weren't there out of fear, that's a very to me, my view, that's a very superficial assessment of why we weren't there. And it's just a guess. And I feel like individuals like that, that's kind of what they do. They take a guess as to what they think it might be, rather than sitting down and let's have a genuine conversation about why the Black people didn't show up.
So Anita, just real quickly, is that what I did when I said that Black people might not have wanted to be there because they would be accused of violence? Is that the same kind of thing? You know,
Well,
sort of filling in the blanks, you know?
Right. And that's the point that I'm making. You can't fill in the blank if you don't sit down and have conversation with actual Black people.
Yeah.
To understand why we were visibly absent. Right? And so when I think about the idea of protesting, and I'm looking at, again, I started off with my mother. I was born and raised in an activist household, right? And so I look at it, that statement about the fear, that we must have had a fear of being identified. But I want you to think about this. If Black people stood in fear in all of the instances of terror that have been perpetrated against our community throughout the spectrum of history, we would still be enslaved. This country was founded on fear when it comes to Black people. How did we even get here? Yeah. We didn't come here voluntarily. We were brought here under slave conditions, right? But under those slave conditions, the primary tool that they used to keep us under control from day one all the way up until contemporary times was terror and fear.
Yeah, that's right.
It was terror and fear. So if you think about it, if fear was the driving factor for us, and you look at it through that spectrum of history, we could possibly still be enslaved, because the primary reason we're not is because of our resistance. There's never been a point in the history of America, the history of Black people in America, where we were not resistant.
Right. Yeah.
We've always been resistant. So the idea of connecting our presence with fear, it just doesn't compute to me at all.
That's
right?
what you've earned for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? It just
Yes,
doesn't
yeah.
compute to me at all. So if we trace the arc of African descended people in America, right? If you trace it from enslavement through Reconstruction, through Jim Crow, through the Civil Rights Movement, all the way up to the present day struggle for justice, we've never been afraid of going up against the forces that keep us in bondage or try to keep us in bondage.
And
So
most
the idea,
Black bodies are on the front line of those protests.
and it's not just the front lines of the protests, like our entire existence in America has been a protest.
Okay, right.
It's been a protest. The people in Africa, when they were stealing us away, there were people who fought against that.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So the point I'm making is I feel like we live in such an age now where people make statements without the benefit of any real scrutiny, if you will, of really understanding why were we not there. Like, I totally get why we weren't there.
Yeah.
I get it.
You know,
And
Anita,
part of it-
that's really a deep level of experience on your part.
Mhm.
Right. I mean, just the way you explained it to me earlier today, I don't know. I think it would take most white people a long time to get that deep within themselves about what the experience might be like for you over the arc of history and then this particular march.
And yet, isn't
Absolutely.
that what we as white people need to be able to do?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
To reframe and to rename what this has really been and what still goes on and what needs to change. I mean,
Especially when it's not your experience.
right.
I don't care how many times I see a white person say, make statements about racism against white people, or, people who have that kind of conversation. I don't care how many times you say that. You have no idea what it feels like on a daily basis to be the focal point of racism in your home country. You don't know what that feels like. And so that's why when I read that, the fact that it wasn't posed as a question, that it was posed more as a statement, based on what? Who did you have a conversation with to come to that conclusion that we weren't there because we were fearful?
Yeah.
Every single protest that has been in this country where Black people were involved, we always knew that there was a risk of us being hurt, killed, or whatever. But if that was the thing that stopped us, that's why I put it out there as a question. If that was the thing that stopped us, when you think about our ancestral line, our history, if that was the thing that stopped us, we would have never experienced freedom.
That's right.
We would still be enslaved.
Yeah.
It's because of our resistance, our fighting. And I'm not saying that in our struggles, there's never been white people involved or other people, period, involved, because there certainly have been. And I totally and completely recognize that. When you think about the civil rights movement and you think about the freedom riders and all, they were not all Black people. But
Okay,
those individuals who did that, they could tell you exactly why they were willing to walk in those footsteps as a protester right alongside of Black people, knowing that they could potentially lose their life.
yeah,
And there are people who did lose their life who weren't white people. They didn't, I mean, who weren't Black people who
yeah,
lost their life. So the point I'm making, fear has always been a weapon, particularly when it comes to the issue of Black people in America. Fear has always been a weapon. But we've also always counteracted that fear with courage.
yeah.
To be able to stand up. I'd say it took courage for us not to come to the No Kings protest. Because I would imagine, just like myself, pondered about it and thought about it. And then when you think about it, we were talking about this earlier, when you think about it through the lens of the election,
Yeah.
you think about it through the lens of the election. We told y'all not to vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly Black women. We told you not to vote for him. But the fact of the matter is, you did it anyway. And now you got exactly what you voted for. Then when you get to the point where you begin to realize him being in this role and some of the decisions and the choices that he's making is now impacting me.
Up close.
Up close
Yeah.
and personal. It's
Yeah.
impacting me. But when it wasn't impacting you, where did you stand?
There's so much we have to learn, Anita. It's just embarrassing. I was listening to Rachel Maddow point out all of the marches across the country. And to my knowledge, she never said, this is pretty much a white crowd. She went to like 20 different cities and pointed them out. I think she did that for June and probably the one in October. I just wonder, what else aren't we seeing? Well, a lot, but I'm involved, I care, I want to see, and I missed it. I've still missed it. And one of the most powerful things I saw was a video of a woman sitting in her car, a Black woman saying, we're just tired. We're so tired. Who could not understand that?
Absolutely.
So tired. We need to let y'all carry it today. Yeah.
And in doing that, in making that choice and making that statement, you still have white people wondering, why didn't
where are you?
show up?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you think about things like protest fatigue as an example. And again, if you look at it through a historical lens, we've been doing this. My mom was a protester. I'm a protester. My kids have protested. We could take it all the way back in time, all the way back to the 1800s when there were rebellions. And because we have never, and I emphasize the word never, been satisfied with being in a position of enslavement. Or all of the extensions of enslavement that we now, the remnants of it that are still here in our country and in our lives. We've never been satisfied with that.
it's never been a democracy for Black folk.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. When we come back from break, I want to talk about, I hope we're going to talk about the idea of the goal of No Kings. What was the real goal? There were a lot of different kinds of signs.
Mm-hmm.
And it contrasts that to prior, mainly Black protests.
Right. So yeah, why don't we take a break? It's that time for us to take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll kind of continue the conversation. So welcome back to this episode of Inflection Point Podcast, where we are pondering the question, why were there no Black people at the No Kings protest? So I'm going to pass the baton over to Mavis because she has something that she wants to share.
I just noticed that I was talking to some of my friends out west, and there was a writer for the Denver Post who said, I'll come to a protest when you really have a message. And her point was that there were so many issues at the No Kings March that it wasn't a unified message. And I disagree with that because the current environment is destroying so many elements of our society that we still needed to come together. But there were other things that I read that said, so what's the point and what's going to happen as a result of these No Kings protests? And so, Anita, when you've mentioned to us, let's talk about the boycott in Mississippi, right? How the effect of that boycott afterwards. But these people made sacrifices, like you were talking about the freedom riders. These people made serious sacrifices in order to bring about change. Mm-hmm. I have to confess that I went to the protest. I had a good time. It was very positive. What did I accomplish? What will we accomplish? Mm-hmm. I mean, we can show in numbers that we disagree with the administration, but are we willing to sacrifice in that same way with a singular message, freedom mm-hmm. for all? Something that really pulls everybody together on the same plane.
Exactly. And I think there's a danger in looking at protests as being the window to what's really going on and all of the activity that's really going on. Because even though, we're talking about this whole issue of that, the Black people, there were not a lot of Black people at the protest, but that doesn't mean that Black people aren't protesting. There's lots of forms of protesting. If you look at protesting only being in the street, then you're missing the point. You're really missing the point of what protesting actually is. Protesting is resistance. Mm-hmm. And protesting in the form of resistance means I'm going to make certain decisions within myself. I haven't been in Target in like a year, probably. Mm-hmm. And so when I hear people, like, for example, one of my nephews had said, I had made a point, I think it was around the time when there was like a day when this was like a no shopping day or, don't spend your money day. Yeah. And his assessment of it, well, I'm only one person. So if I don't go shop, what difference does that make? So I think people, when they kind of think about this idea of protesting, you have to be able to see it from a collective perspective. So it's not just what you decide to do, but to the No Kings achievement, they had like 7 million people.
Yeah.
That's 7 million people who made a decision that said, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I want to be represented.
Well, and clearly it was, against the current administration.
Exactly. So when I hear that the statement, that the point that you were just making, I feel like that's a person who doesn't really fully understand
No, I read
the
some of her other
idea
stuff.
and the ideology behind
Yeah.
protesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Protesting comes in so many forms.
Right, right. And what about other brown folks at the protest? I mean, I don't know what the numbers were there, but ICE has changed the flavor of everything.
Right.
I'm going to the airport tomorrow. I'm thinking, what do I need to know? I mean, I'm white, but still, I want to know what the rights of my fellow brown people are so that I can stand with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's ICE has just changed so much. Talk about, instilling fear, but that's the goal. And it seems to me that Black folks know how to get beyond that and continue to protest.
And again, this idea
word.
of instilling fear.
Yeah.
But you have to, I mean, it gets back to what I was saying earlier. Fear has always been a part of our existence in America. So, but we have to make choices as to how we're going to manage that fear.
Mhm.
Are we going to move forward in spite of the fear? Do we allow the fear to hold us back? Because if, as I said earlier, if we allow the fear to hold us back, we could still easily be still enslaved.
True.
Because it was overcoming fear, and it was resistance
Right.
that broke all of that down.
What would you say to Hispanic people at this point in the environment of ICE? What would you say? Because they are physically being taken off the street.
Yes. So,
so how can we share this with them?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really, really good question. And I think, again, one of the issues is because for the Hispanic community, this is new. This is new.
Ish. I mean, it
The whole
probably happened
concept,
outside of knowledge.
the whole concept is new.
Mm-hmm.
That immigration is working the way that it is. ICE can roll down your street at any time and just take you. That is new.
Yeah. Smash
So
your
if you think about the fact, so if you look at that through a historical lens, that's very new.
Yeah.
It's not something that's been going on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And I think the fact that it hasn't been going on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years is why the fear is so much bigger.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Because this is something we have not experienced before.
And it's happening more for white people too, I've never been afraid.
But there's always been the
possibility
of us losing our life. And I think for me, that's one of the reasons why you have to have conversations, and I talk about this all the time, conversations where you remove your own blinders or remove your own sense of being in the world and how you walk through the world, how you talk through the world, and really get to the point where I want to understand what all of this looks and feels like for you. White people have the privilege of not having to do that.
Yes.
You don't ever have to do that.
Well, that could change given how facial recognition is everywhere now. And
yeah, but now
PSA is asking to see your phone and are you against the president and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, but at the same time, think about it like this.
It doesn't compare to what's happening to brown.
That's the point that I'm making.
Of course, yeah.
This is new.
Yes.
Just like what I said, what the Hispanic community is experiencing with ICE. This is new.
Yeah.
And it's new because we had an election. And think about it. It's only been a year.
Not
even. Yeah.
It's only been a year.
Oh, since the election, yeah.
Well, yes, since the election.
But I mean, since he's actually been in office.
Look at all of the turmoil that has been
chaos
perpetrated. It's chaos. It's fear and all of that. Yes,
And it's
absolutely.
moving towards considering like a class system of the people that are of one economic group are going to be fine, and also if they're white, and the other economic groups are not going to be, whether they're white or brown, black, or what,
Right, right.
economically.
So
Yeah.
I feel like this is the moment in time.
Mhm.
So, because we collectively, as a citizenry, now have a common enemy, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
We now have a common enemy.
Mm.
So, having said that, how are we going to respond to that? Because it's the citizenry
This is
coming
about
together that can provide a different force, if you will. But the only way that's really going to happen, in my view, is that the citizenry has to come to terms with all of the stuff that divides us up in the first
In the
place.
first place.
It's actually happening, and who's going to affect?
We have this person up here who is an enemy. But he's an enemy to Hispanic people. He's an enemy to Black people. He's an enemy to anybody who immigrated here, no matter where you came from.
Yeah.
And so if
He's
we
also an
citizens-
enemy to white people too, that are
Yes.
working class, middle class, and
Absolutely.
lower class.
Women.
Yeah. That is exactly the
It is.
point. It is the citizenry.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is something that everyone needs, unless you are white and you make over $1 million a year and you have no problem at all going right along with what this has been. Everybody else needs to be saying enough.
Yeah.
That we're not going to stand by and let this democracy be destroyed.
Right. I heard something kind of cool last night about the election here in New Jersey. A man said, well, I've always been a Republican, but my daughter said, this is my future. You got to support this man or woman. I forget which election it was, but they said then on the news program, this is happening more and more. Look, I'm going to be living in a country or a world that is having issues from climate change. Immigration is only going to increase because countries are being drowned, shores are being washed away. And I just thought, that gave me hope. Oh, that was very cool.
Yeah. So bottom line is we're in a place in America that we've never been in quite like this before.
Yeah.
And because we have a person who is at the head of everything who hates everybody. He hates everybody.
Anyone that disagrees with him.
Yeah.
That's my point. That's my point. And so you have a choice.
Mhm.
You're either going to put yourself in alignment with this individual or you're going to do something different. There's no middle of the road. I think that's one of the things for me that comes out of the No Kings.
Right. That's right.
There's no middle of the road.
No.
There's no middle of the road. Because to varying degrees, we're all going to be impacted by what's going on there.
We already are. Yeah.
And if we don't take a different kind of stance as citizens
That's right.
with a common foe.
As a national community, yes. Yeah.
As a national community, yes.
Right.
I have to say that being at the protest emboldened me to do more. Because if you aren't around people, like where I live is pretty Republican. It's mostly about 2/3, and you just don't want to offend anybody. We don't talk about it much in our neighborhoods. But when I was there, I thought there are many of us, who care about this administration without respect to party. Right. And we do need to become singular minded in terms of what we want for this country.
Right. Because I can't imagine what we're going to look like at the end of this 4 year. It's hard for me to even
I
imagine
know.
what
Yeah.
we're going to look like.
If something doesn't stop this process,
Exactly.
yeah, it will not be recognizable. And it will
as
not
Heather
look like a
Cox-
democracy.
right. As Heather Cox Richardson says, there's more of us than there are
That's
of
right.
them. We
Yeah,
need
true, true.
the citizenry, as you say, needs to become of one mind, of one presence. And, no,
Mhm.
we're not doing this.
Right. But at the same time, this recognition that not all of the citizens are in the same boat that we're in. So, you got one boat is the people that say, no kings, and which I totally agree with and all of that. But then you have another boat that says, well, yeah, I do kind of want that. I do want that.
Well, that's a democracy, right? And we need to come to the table and sort
Exactly.
the best solution for a
What's the
country
majority
we all
saying?
live in.
Right.
Right. So it was actually very gratifying we stayed up last night just absorbing everything about the election. So it was very gratifying to see the outcome, because it's like we have to move back in the direction of democracy.
Right.
And
Participatory democracy.
what was that?
Participatory democracy.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think there's a chance for us to do that if we continue in that vein. And rather than asking, those types of questions, well, why isn't this person there? Or why isn't that person there? We need to just sit down and have conversations and recognize the fact that we're all coming from different places.
Right. Right.
Like we talked about the Hispanic community, they're coming from that ICE and immigration place.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
the whole ball of wax,
right,
the whole
right.
that entire ball of wax is that it's the citizenry, and then here's this stuff on top of the citizenry. So we can't keep bickering amongst ourselves down here. We have to come to some sort of accord, if you will, to be able to push back strong enough that this will not be our future beyond 4 years.
Yeah.
Like I'm
not Cairo's future at all. Yeah. Not Cairo's future.
We're literally down to about 3 minutes left of this episode. So for the people that are listening, the audience, just kind of think within yourself, like where you are in all of this conversation, whether you participated in the No Kings or whether you didn't participate. Are you going to participate in the blackout that's coming out? These are all these things that are there.
Many ways to.
And people have to make choices as to what level of participation am I going to have. Like I look at it, America, it's the pocketbook. It's the purse strings. Like who's losing money because a whole 7, 8, 10 million people decided not to shop the week of Thanksgiving.
We'll get their attention.
It will get their
And
attention.
that's what the hope is. So we're literally like down to no more time. This has really been it's more of an open discussion, because we usually have things a little bit more structured, but this was very much an open discussion, and I really appreciate the direction that it did go in. So for those of you who are listening, this is Inflection Point podcast on Transformation Talk Radio. We are here every first and third Wednesday of the month. We're getting ready to start getting geared up for what's going to be happening in 2026. So stay tuned, keep coming and keep following, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to Inflection Point Podcast, where our mantra is cultivating change from the inside out. The journey towards anti-racism and social change doesn't stop here. Truth, reconciliation, and healing come from ongoing, open, honest, and deliberate conversations. Continue to dive in and deconstruct your thoughts, ideas, and beliefs as we band together to manifest social change. Tune in to Inflection Point Podcast every first and third Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, here on TransformationTalkRadio.com for more conversations about how we can cultivate change from the inside out.